young dudes walk into the gym. Don't know why, but they were just like, we're here and we're interested in CrossFit. And I was like, why? And they were like, because we've just seen the movie 300. And those guys look pretty good. I want to look like them. And I'm like, well, all right, nutrition, but I ain't mad at you. Like, come on in and we'll look after you, right? So no matter how people find us, our job is to just try to go with that flow, isn't it? Try and help them. Because we have people that find us through the CrossFit Games, right? Where we have our inspirational and aspirational athletes, right? They guide and they motivate people. They're like, hell yeah, I want to be like that. The flip of that, though, is for every person who's motivated by the CrossFit Games, it's probably 5 who are scared shitless because of the CrossFit Games, right? My mum included. Anybody else find that? I've spent 20 years working on my mum to come and do CrossFit. 20 years. And it's mad, right? For every single time I think I'm going to get her, then another YouTube clip of somebody snatching over like 200 kilos and like doing a muscle up, and she's like, told you it wasn't for me. Right back to square one every single day, right? So it can be a journey. We've got the magic of the games and the cool thing that's like our Woodstock every year, right? Where we get to see that cool stuff. But we also recognize that for me as a trainer, and probably for us as affiliate owners, the real magic is making ordinary people do extraordinary things. Getting them their first pull-up. And like, anybody think those things as well? Those little things that make the hairs on your neck like stand up a little bit, where somebody gets that first, whatever it may be, the first pull-up, the first muscle up. Maybe it's even the first squat to depth, right? All of those things. One of the most things that stick in my mind the most and gives me fuel for my coaching every day is one story. Lady came in grossly overweight, was panicked very much about CrossFit. She came into the gym, she's like, I don't think this is for me. And we put all of those things aside and we looked after her, right? But she couldn't even squat down to like a 24-inch box under control. It was like she'd unlock the hips and collapse onto the box. She had absolutely no control there. We're like, right, we began the journey. We scaled effectively. We worked on that threshold training that we know well, and we developed her. And over the years, right, the weight came off because we looked at nutrition, and there was just one thing that happened, right? Gym dogs are everywhere. I love the fact that they're here. And there was a gym dog came running in, and this lady, she didn't know anything about it. This was her life now, right? The dog came in, she did this, watch me. And then just went on with her day. Like just one of that little hidden detail, she could do that. I was air punching. I was like, that's my fuel for the next 6 months, you know, like it's all I need. Any of that other bullshit of affiliate ownership, spreadsheets, I don't like so-and-so, we need more strength work. Any of that bollocks disappeared as soon as I got to coach people. That's the magic. So what we're going to talk through now in the next half an hour or period of time is what have we learned from our most successful affiliates? What are the things that they all seem to do? And we managed to distill that down into big 5 areas. And that's what we're going to write on the whiteboard. Hopefully you can see it up the back. If not, I'll leave it up there, take a photo at the end, make life easy. But what I want to do is just understand what these things are. So we'll write them down, and then we'll dive on into each one of these things. So the first one, the methodology of CrossFit. Not only do the affiliates themselves understand it, but they teach it often to their members and to their coaches. And we'll dive into what I mean by that when we get to it, all right, their team? But they understand and they actually deliver and teach the methodology. Next, they actually program CrossFit. Go figure. Sounds pretty obvious, right? But can you see how we need to understand what that is? What is the best practice? What actually is the most often things that we can glean from CrossFit style training? Where are the unique points that we can put across? They prescribe the nutrition protocol. They help people to get there, right? We remember that thing. I'm not going to make you to kind of regurgitate your team, but they understand that eating meat, vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch and no sugar is pretty powerful. In fact, if I could actually get my immediate family to just follow that prescription, I'm talking like my mum, my dad and all of those kind of characters, if I could get them to just do that, I don't actually care if they're doing 21, 15, 9 thrusters and pull-ups. That's more impactful for life, I'd argue, right? So we prescribe and we actually advocate for the nutrition protocol. There goes the dog's not happy. I feel you, brother, I feel you. Protect and serve their community, be number 4. So they understand that protecting and serving the individuals right in front of them are the key procedures keeping them and making sure that they improve on the long term. And then the final one, they develop their coaching. I'm sure there are many other factors, right? But we consider these to be the 5 big pillars which are always present when we have success. Because it's kind of hard, right? How do you define success? It's very different for different people, right? I would not define the success of an affiliate by membership numbers. I wouldn't, because that doesn't mean anything to me, does it? Like, that just means you could be in the middle of a city with thousands and millions of people. So obviously you're going to have more members. That doesn't necessarily mean that you are successful at implementing your program or have a successful business. I also know boxers that have like 15 people in a garage and they consider themselves to be successful. So can we see how these are, like, it's a bit too hard to just use these arbitrary numbers. What we do want to do, sit on here. So what do we mean by understanding the methodology? Well, do we understand even our own definitions? How do we define CrossFit? Here we go. Test time, right? Here we go. What's the definition of CrossFit? Constantly varied functional movement at high intensity. There we go. If we'd all said it together, like with a low monotone voice, we would have sounded like the real cult that we are, right? That would have been perfect. So understanding that, do we understand what our definition of fitness is?
Moving large weights.
Close. That's a nice descriptive and the defining characteristic of functional movement, but I love you, brother. What else have we got? It's an increase in your work capacity across broad time and modal domains. Are we teaching that? Are we educating our folk? Are we making them aware of that being our goal? How about the definition of technique? The movements or positions performed by an athlete to accomplish the task. Our definitions of virtuosity, doing the common uncommonly well. All of these things are very important for us to know so as we can educate our people that much better. How do we do that? It's tough in the class, right? Because especially if we've got a lot to do in the hour, that can be a very tough way of doing it. So I would challenge you to think about, how did you educate yourself about CrossFit when you were trying to figure this crazy thing out? Like, I know for me, it was .com. I'd click on it and then I'd look at something like the workout of the day and it would only be 5x5 back squat and I'd be like, fuck, where's the workout? Anyone else with that kind of stuff? Like, is that it today? Or you'd look at something really simple looking. I now know that to be the trap, right? But I'd look at something now and I'd be like 21, 15, 9. Thrusters, pull-ups. Don't look too bad. And then after the 21s, I'm like, it's bad. Really fucking bad. Like, oh my God. Still fall into that trap now. Does anybody else do that as well? You walk into the gym, see the workout on the whiteboard, looks very simple, and you go, doesn't look too bad today. Yeah, I still do that, team. Yeah, except now I know immediately to go, that means it's going to be shit, right? So we have this understanding, we have to know these things. How do we educate ourselves? Well, I think one of the things that really helped me to understand it was the free article on CrossFit.com written by Greg Glassman. Anybody read that? What is fitness? Anybody read that article? Show of hands who's read that article, team. Yeah, that was amazing for me, right? Light bulb moments. I'm like, yeah, that is fitness. Yeah, that's connecting all of these dots. So if that was really powerful for us, what do you think is going to be a real easy lift for us as educators? Yeah, man, print that shit out and give it to your members, right? They've got some homework, team. They're going to be greater educated. If we can educate them as to what the goals of the program are, I think a lot of the challenges we have with our members would disappear. Who has issues with their members who cherry pick workouts?
Cherry pick.
Yeah, cherry pick means they selectively only choose workouts that they like. Yeah, right? So I know exactly those characters that will always be there on Run 5K Day, and they're definitely not the ones that will be there on 5x5 back squat day, and vice versa, right? You have those characters, right? Hopefully if we can educate them as to the goals and into chasing weaknesses and how that develops overall fitness as an example, can we see how that's going to help us to bring up the whole game? But then I also want you to recognize, don't lose your minds there either. I used to be really kind of like militant and angry about things, right? You're never here on these certain days. You don't understand my program. You know, like you're missing these things, which means you're going to miss these holes in your fitness. Anybody else felt that way as well? And you're like, fuck. And then like 8, 9, 10 years later, they're still at my gym and smiling. And then I realized, okay, I'm not that mad, I guess, right? It was the same with things where I used to have lots of opinions when I first started training, and maybe I have them a little less now. Knee sleeves. When I was like 20 years old, knee sleeves, you don't need knee sleeves. You don't need a lifting belt. Then I became over 40. I like those things. Like, you know, just feel like a little warm hug around my knees in the morning, you know, like giving a little cuddle. And some days the belt just needs to go on, you feel me? Like some days I look down at the floor and I have to understand, like, do I really want to pick that thing up? You know, like, yeah, we'll leave that for them. Or alternatively, that's the reason why I have kids. Hey kids, pick that up for your dad, you know? Sweet. So, can we see how the more that we can educate our athletes about the methodology and the more that we can do that with our coaches, then we're going to be better armed. Great, pushes have been done there as well. Did you all know that because you've got the level 1 as a bare minimum, then that gives you access to all of those pre-recorded lectures that you sat on the level 1? So what is CrossFit? What is fitness? Technique, programming, nutrition, all of these things are a click away for you. Can you see how that's such a fantastic resource for you to send out in newsletters or in little chats, even if you don't want to do the physical thing? But can we see how all we're trying to get at is that improving and the understanding of the methodology means that the whole game comes up. Questions there, team? Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Happy team, lovely. Program CrossFit would be the next step, right? Now I know that sounds daft, but probably just do one workout a day. That's probably smart for most people's long-term improvement. You can get a lot of improvement by smashing yourself, like for multiple sessions a day. But I tried it for a while, right? All I got was like really tired. Anybody else feel that as well? Where it's just like, damn, I'm training a lot. And then the kids would be like, hey, Dad, do you want to come and bounce on the trampoline? And you're like, nope, I'm fucked. Like, absolutely bagging. I'm like, no, I've got nothing for you, bud, sorry. And then I'm like, good work, shit, Dad. Right? So can we see how you can do it? But I think there's a danger with thinking that we need to train like the best in our community, the sport of the athletes, right? Which is great, but that realistically, they represent such a small population of our gym population. Most folk get huge amounts of improvements by one workout a day programmed well, don't they, right? So by programmed well, that's what, let's have a think about it. What are some of the general themes that we take from stereotypical CrossFit workouts? Now, of course, we have variance. Variance is great. So even though I'm going to give you a template to stick to the best, I still want you to explore outside of it, right? Because that's what we have with fitness. But general rules, if we think of workouts that you would see stuck on .com as an example, historically, what kind of time frames do you think you generally find the workouts in? 15 minutes, yes, around about 15 minutes or less is going to be probably like the vast majority of the workouts, right? There are obvious exceptions, but the vast majority of our work would be under 15 minutes. Why do we think that is, team? Beyond it being shit, because it is.
To keep high intensity.
Yeah, you can keep high intensity. Maybe you can recover because there's not too much volume. I guess it depends how hard we work in that 15, but I hear you. Yeah, exactly, yeah, I hear you, you're right.
Spend more time on the warm-up and stretching.
Yeah, you can, that's an old man talking right there. I love that. Spend more time on the warm-up and stretching, fuck yeah. Yeah, exactly. Even if you just look at the outside factors of just that workout, under 15 minutes sucks, doesn't it, right? Let's use our experience. Yeah. You know, like if I've got my power-based athletes, you know, my characters that when they see Grace, they're like, yeah, motherfucker, it's my day, right? But then when they see Murph, they're like, oh, damn, like I'm not there that day, right? You know my athlete, everyone's got those, let's call them the Grace athletes, right? Everyone's got your Grace athletes. We know the time frame where we actually see them implode, agreed? It's about 7 minutes. Yeah. You ever seen them? Like they look like world-class athletes up until around about 5 to 6 minutes. And then the wheels start to wobble and then they fall off, don't they? In about anywhere north of 7 minutes and they're like fucking just all over the place. So 15 minutes means that their fitness comes up, doesn't it? Pushes them to get more stuff. And here's the other end though, the wonderful thing. 15 minutes is not long enough for your endurance athletes to show you how fit they are. Right? They get to around about that 15 minutes and they're like, and time! And they're like, fuck, I was just getting warmed up, bro. I wanted to show you how good I was. So those endurance athletes, what does it help them to do?
Get stronger.
Yeah, go stronger, get a little faster, get some more intensity. So we can see how it's a wonderful middle ground of shitness that creates huge fitness for everybody. Shitness that makes fitness. That should be on a t-shirt right there. Just come up with it as well. Fuck yeah, make it. But can we see how that's the wonderful thing? Now, movement patterns that we have, we generally use the functional movements, right? Why do we use functional movements? Because they give us more power output and they give us more results. I'm not mad at bicep curls, I get it. Nobody can see your lungs on the beach, so you've got to look good too. I feel you. But can you also see as well, you've got to make sure that they stick to those big movers because they generate more results for us. People are like, well, you don't do enough twisty stuff. I'm like, go do your twisty shit, man. I ain't mad at you. But can we see how people are like, well, I want that to be more in my program. And I'm going to say, well, I think you'll reduce intensity if you do that. If it's core to your program, I don't mind you doing it in, I think the cool kids call it accessories, right? But otherwise, just do it at the start or the finish of your training session, right? Little cash outs or cash ins, whatever you want to call it. It changes name every couple of years, but it's still the same damn thing, which is do your big workout and then do your other shitty stuff on the side. Now, basically, can we see how Fight Gone Bad is a prime example? Who's done the workout Fight Gone Bad? Wow, I expected more hands. Do Fight Gone Bad when you get home. It's terrible. But it's the most recognizable from the traditional gym world in the CrossFit world, right? Because it just looks like circuits. You do a minute of max reps, move to the next minute max reps, next minute max reps, 5 exercises. You rest for 1 minute, you do the whole thing 3 times. It's shit. Like, you will find yourself crying into the medicine ball rather than wanting to do more wall ball shots. It's terrible. However, they're big high power movements, agreed? That's why it affects you so bad. Now, let's say that I get rid of the sumo deadlift high pulls, because I don't like sumo deadlift high pulls, and I'm going to get you to do the sit down twisty thing. And that's what you're going to do instead. If I'm on the receiving end of that instruction, I'm smiling. Why? It's easier. Yeah, you just gave me an extra rest station, didn't you? Because I'm like, hell yeah, I don't want to do a max set of sumo deadlift high pulls in a minute. I want to sit down and do the tippy tappy thing. That's a shit ton easier, despite the merits. To see what I'm getting at right there? So we try to hone in on those functional movements. If you look at the function, where do we see the most amount of our improvements in CrossFit? Complementary movement patterns or redundant movement patterns? Where do we see the most amount of intensity?
Complementary.
Complementary, yeah. I'll help you to understand what those terms mean. I know they're weird. Redundancy, even for an Englishman, doesn't mean what it means in America. Isn't that great? So I'm confused too. I hear redundancy and I'm like, I lost my job? What the fuck? But in American English, redundancy just simply means movements that impact on each other. So they become redundant for intensity. So for example, a workout that has rowing and power cleans. Very similar movement patterns. So therefore, you're probably going to get very tired very fast and not likely to keep the workout going. Does that make sense? The best example of redundancy in a workout is actually the original hero workout, JT. Right? That's misery. 21, 15, 9, handstand push-ups, ring dips, and the hardest fucking push-ups of your life. Right? Because all of the movements are you doing this, aren't they? Right? In just many different ways. So intensity does what? Tanks. Yeah, exactly. When I do the workout JT, I bring an ab mat because that's what I'm going to be kneeling on for a workout, just doing this the whole damn time. Good ideas of complementary movement patterns are ones where you don't have local muscular fatigue. So can you see how Fran would be a great example of complementary movement patterns? In the thruster, you've got a hip-generated push. In the pull-up, you've got a shoulder-generated pull. So can you see how for local muscular fatigue, there's no reason to stop? From a fitness point of view, there's all the reasons to stop, right? But can you see how from a muscular fatigue point of view, there's no reason. So therefore, you can always keep moving. The vast majority of our successful CrossFit programming is in complementary movement patterns, isn't it? Think how many times that's replicated just in named workouts. You have Fran, but can you also see that it exists in workouts like Elizabeth, where you have full cleans and ring dips, Diane, handstand push-ups and deadlifts? Can we see how that kind of gets replicated in all our best expressions of CrossFit as we go along? See there? Cool. Talk to me about Like we're going to see moderate rep schemes, aren't we? Not exactly low rep schemes, but they're going to be how much total work is done in a workout like Fran? How many total reps?
25 reps, 50.
Yep. So times that by 2, right? Because you've got the 2.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've got like 80 to 90, so less than 100 reps. When you look at the loads as well, we go for variance right the way throughout, don't we? But a lot of our things are light to moderate in terms of the actual loading. I know it might not feel that way. Like a 40 kilo thruster, it depends. Agreed? Like it depends on the individual. It depends what I'm being asked to do and how many reps. But for less than 100, a 95 pound barbell, a 40 kilo barbell as a prescription is designed to be light. Because we know that because good athletes go through that whole sucker unbroken, agreed?
Yeah.
So we know that that's the intent. That might not be what happens to us, but that's where we need to be better at the other stuff, right? Programming and understanding, scaling and threshold training to get the intent. Because we can use the time frame to guide that. Where do we think the intent, I know the alphas are in the crowd, so stand by, but what do we think the intent of a workout like Fran is in terms of time? Where do you think that you should be aiming for the vast majority of people?
5 minutes?
I like that. Any change on 5? Sub 5, aggressive, but I still love you. I like that. As a range, remember we're talking about like a guide for the vast majority of our class. I think 5 to 7 is an absolutely fine range to get our guys and girls, right? We scale appropriately, whether it's from skill, whether it's for load, maybe whether it's for range of motion, to get the vast majority of our class to land there, right? As soon as they nudge sub 5 with every scaling option, what do you reckon we should be doing? Yeah, increasing one element to try and make sure that we get them back into that 5 to 7. And we keep rinsing and repeating until they go sub 5, until they go sub 3. I'll get there one day, I guess, 20 years in, fucking no. And then what do we reckon? What's the fastest in the world? What's some of the crazies doing? Sub 2. You know that? It makes me chuckle a little bit where you get like the armchair judges like jump out and they're like, well, look at the range of motion. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you a PVC pipe. I'm going to let you do jumping pull-ups, and I'm going to let you shortchange your range of motion on the thrusters, and I'm going to see if you get sub 2. 3, 2, 1, go. Never happens.
We actually did that. We did like 4-week challenge.
Yeah, man.
We just grabbed the PC5, and every Friday you scale jumping 24 everyone. Even the stronger people who can do like 20 on the row, no one finished.
Exactly.
I think 150 was the best one.
Damn. That's a lot of fitness right there. I'm inspired. But more than the programming and the application of it has got to be key, right? Knowing how to scale effectively is key. You know, we're in an information-rich environment, so I think there's no real excuse not to have variance in our scaling options, if I'm honest. You know, if we're always scaling pull-ups to jumping pull-ups, or always scaling pull-ups to band assist, can we see how we stagnate people's progress a lot of the time? Who's ever found this as well? Pull-ups are written on the whiteboard. You haven't even discussed scaling options, and you turn around and your team have already got their favorite rubber band over their shoulder. And they're already looking at you and they just give it one of these. Like it's their blanket when they were a baby, you feel me? Yeah, exactly. They're like that. And what you got your band for? They're like, pull-ups. Purple band. You know? How often do they get off the damn purple band, team? Not often, right? They just stay there for a long time. Now, I ain't mad at that as a scaling option, but it should only be one, right? Should have a list of them that you're always rotating through to change that up, right? Got to make sure that the variance, if it's crucial to our program, is also crucial when it comes to our scaling options, so as we don't blunt people's progress. They always need to be marching forwards, right? So the variance has got to be crucial there. And if we don't know how, educate ourselves, right? We do this as a drill on the level 2 quite often, where we're a bit sneaky and we challenge our people in the classroom. Where we're like, hey, 100-foot handstand walk, would you program that in their gym? And then we have a talk about the hows and the whys and why we wouldn't and whatever. And then I'm like, all right, cool. Let me propose a different challenge. You've got no choice. Go ahead and program it. And they're like, yeah, but that wouldn't happen. I'm like, yeah, it does. It's called the fucking open. Right, we have that challenge every year, agreed? Who every year kind of logs on and they're like, fuck, what am I going to have to try and figure out in my gym this year? And we had that wonderful one, which was 1 year. Anybody remember this? 20-foot section of overhead walking lunges with a barbell. And you needed to have the pull-up rig at the end of it because you were doing chest to bar on one end and you were doing burpees on the other. Anybody remember that shit first? Mm-hmm. And then you're like, okay, I've got 70 people that need to go through this and I've got room for one to go through it at a time. and my savages are probably going to want to do it 17 times across a 3-day program. You're like, brilliant, can't wait. So that challenge is presented every year, and that's very impactful for us in our understanding of how to scale, how to lesson plan, and how to manage numbers. So I think that's a great thing to take on board. And if we don't know how to scale, just Google that shit, right? So if we don't know how to scale for a handstand walk, I would say you do. You're probably just making your life easier by not doing it, right? That's my challenge to you. I think you'd look at it, and I know if I said, hey, you've got no choice, we're going to program handstand walks, what would the logical stepping stones be? I bring my crew together. I brief the workout. Who can do handstand walks and can do that in the time frame that I want? How many hands do you reckon will go up? Couple, yeah, maybe a couple. The rest of the crew, what am I going to have to figure out? Scaling. So that's the challenge, right? Let's go through that as a bit of a process. Let's say that we've got 100-foot handstand walking, but they can't do handstand walking. What scaling options could I present to my crew? Wall climbs. Everyone loves wall climbs, right? Fucking bear crawls. Shoulder taps, yep. Wall walks as well, yeah, around the wall, or those kind of lateral wall walks as well.
People wheelbarrows.
Yeah, man, wheelbarrow races. My kids fucking love that, bro.
Best thing.
Yeah, and I mean, adults are just big kids.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen adults doing wheelbarrow races? It's brilliant. I mean, make sure you've got ice packs ready, because they will always go beyond the limits of how much they can do this and just straight into the ground. So it is fun though, right? But can you see how that is just basically like a harder version of a bear crawl? A stepping stone of being able to get more inverted. I've even seen people kick up while a buddy kind of holds a PVC pipe as like a brace and then walks with them as they go.
Yeah.
I've seen the thing that we do on the cash out on the CrossFit gymnastics course as well, where you kick up into buddies and they kind of hold your leg, pass you to the next buddy in line, and then you go along that way. I've seen people kick up and squeeze an ab mat between their legs. So as it helps them maintain that tight body position, and the coach comes in and grabs the ab mat, basically uses it like a steering wheel, just kind of drags them across the floor. So all of these are options for you to play about with, aren't they, you know? So sometimes it's just us doing a disservice to the challenge for ease. Program for ease sometimes, right? So program as if all bets are off. So I'm going to give you a strategy to help you. Program for fitness. Program like you have access to Rogue's Warehouse and unlimited funds. Program there first, but then can you see how then you've got to start bringing down and scaling it or adapting it relevant to the issues that you might have. Whether that's going to be space, whether that's going to be equipment. You see how that's just a matter of figuring it out. Fight gone bad. Tough to manage, but you can kind of set people at different stages. I would say a workout like the Filthy 50. Who's done that? Yeah, right? The Filthy 50 is an awesome workout, but very rarely is it programmed at the affiliate level, because it's basically all of the repetitions and all of the CrossFit. Agreed? And plus you're like, shit, you know, it's got GHDs in there as prescribed. I've got one or none of those things, so how the hell do I make this work? Now, can you see how all you have to do is then start thinking about, well, how can I get as close to that stimulus as possible? The way we used to do Filthy 50 was pretty easy. We just used to do it as a 2-minute AMRAP. Start people at different stations and flesh it out that way. You'd have like an RX run, and then you just have like a scaled version next to it or whatnot, and everybody would infill. Lovely, I've got everyone in their thing. 2 minutes. Get to 50. If you get to 50, good job. You get the rest for the remainder of the 2 minutes before you move to the next thing. We've done that in terms of setting up just one long run of it and played Chase the Rabbit. So you have one athlete goes in, your faster athletes first, right? They go in first. Box jumps, move forwards to the jumping pull-ups. As soon as they move forwards to the jumping pull-ups, what do you do to the next one? In you go and catch them. Always works, right? And then have like motivational consequences on the end if somebody catches you or not, right? You've got that fun play. Can you see that's just limits of the imagination when it comes to scaling? More often than not, we just scale for ease or program for ease. So I challenge you not to. Try and program for fitness. Beyond that, scaling is pretty easy, right? So I've adapted the workout or I've adjusted it to get as close as I can for the limits of my thing. Then I have to figure out the limits of me as a trainer and the limits of my people. If it's the limits of me as a trainer, then guess what I've got to do? Learn more. That's fine. Go educate myself, do a little quick Google search, go read some articles, go do the thing, maybe go on a subject matter course, whatever it may be. If it's the limits of my people, that's cool. That's what we do on a daily basis. What have we got to do? Scale effectively. Remember, scaling doesn't necessarily mean make easy. Scaling just means challenge them, maybe not at the full thing. The goal of scaling is to preserve the intended stimulus of the workout and shove them a little closer. That's it. Fun times, right? Not too complicated thus far. This one, though, challenging, baby. Nutrition, my goodness. Dealing with people and nutrition is like dealing with alcoholics. 100%, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't really help people unless they give you the in. You ever notice that? You can stand there and talk about this stuff time and time again, but if they're not receptive, a bit like Dan was talking about yesterday, right? The bullshit shield comes up straight away. They're like, nah, I'm not interested. So you're always on the lookout for it as a trainer, aren't you? How do I help people with nutrition, which I'd argue is more powerful than the training? You have a little look and you're like, listen to those little conversations. Hey, coach, I don't feel like I'm getting any fitter. Ding. Really, you're training often enough. What's your nutrition look like? Hey, coach, I want to go and do like a different program. I want to do the thing. I want more of the stuff because I think that's where more results are. Talk to me about your nutrition. Like all of those things. Now they're receptive, right? They're listening and they're open. Nobody likes the nutrition chat. I have to deliver it most weekends. And some crew are like, they're engaged. They're meeting my eye. They're making notes. And others are like, fucking, when's lunch? Every weekend. And I get it. I ain't mad at them. They're just not there yet. It'll happen. Most folk, if they're not interested in nutrition, they're probably just 20. Because that was me too, man. I did not give a shit about nutrition. I'm like, yeah, never had to worry about the aesthetics thing, right? I've never held a lot of weight, so I'm like, I never had to worry about that thing. But I was really interested in why my mate kept beating me in workouts. That's what turned me onto nutrition. That was the only thing, right? Just stupid alpha mentality, ego. I wanted to beat my mate. So people will come to that conversation at all different times. But our job is to still keep advocating for it, right? And involve people. How many times have you noticed that even basics aren't understood? Are we still fighting the same things about people understanding that vegetables and carbohydrates are the same thing? People will say, like, I have my carbs, but I also have my fruit and veg. And I'm like, good for you. You're getting more vitamins and minerals, but it's technically the same fucking thing. Like, just those conversations. Do they understand what these macronutrients are? Most of the time, I'd say they don't. So writing those things up, maybe a little laundry list, can challenge, like put little challenges out, help educate that next generation. My kids brilliantly fucked me over. Because we went to a supermarket, and parents in the room, you'll feel me on this. If you go to the supermarket with your kids, it's tough. Because they're like, I want this, I want that, I want this. So I'm like, I'm going to try and be smart for the first time in my life. Or second time. First time was marrying my wife. Second time. Give the kids the shopping basket, and I'm like, go and find me as many things that you can without an ingredients list. So I'm trying to educate them on the basics, right? Minimal ingredients list probably means proper food, right? Apple. Apple. Right? That kind of thing, like steak. Steak, you feel me, right? So it goes in the thing. However, my kids did see me off because we have the bakery on the outside. And the donuts were in that little thing that you lift up and you grab one and put in the basket, right? There's no ingredients list. Oh, fuck. So in fairness, I had to go, you played me at my own game, you get the donut today. Good job, kids. Like, you have to admit when the banter is good, you have to take that hit for sure. But can we see how just those little bits of education? Try and drip feed that in across the time. There are strategies that work there. Now, for every structured nutrition program that works, I've seen it not work too. Humans aren't that easy. I wish they were, right? You could just do this very structured 30-day challenge and that's their life changed. Not really. Generally what happens is they celebrate that 30 days challenge by going absolutely fucking crazy at the end of the 30 days. Anybody else feel that? Like, yeah, we'd have a pizza party and go and get fucked up. And you're like, oh, don't think that was the point, but okay. So I think a lot of our times is actually educating our people about how to get back into a routine again, right? Letting them know that a Friday night where they've enjoyed with their friends isn't the deal breaker and they don't have to go crazy for the next 2 months. Just get back on the wagon again, right? One meal away from getting back in the fight. Little challenges like that. Peer pressure is one of the best things. Their buddies are their worst and their best enemies, right? You got like getting those guys together. For me, the example that I always use here is my early morning crew, the 6 a.m. crew. They are my most dedicated and most violent crew. Anybody else feel that with their early morning crew? They're always there. And if one other member of the morning crew doesn't turn up, I don't have to say a damn word, do I? As the trainer. Before they've even finished the cool down, they'll be like over here kind of doing one of these and they'll be on their mobile phone like, where the fuck were you? Straight away, they're holding each other accountable. So peer pressure is great. Having little crews that keep each other accountable and check in is awesome. Anybody find that that's the power of their community as well? The accountability piece is crucial. Dan talked about it this morning with the workout. He said if it wasn't for you guys being here, he wouldn't have gone. I think that's crucial for all of us, the accountability piece. I train on my own in a barn, right? But the programming that I follow, CrossFit Linchpin, just because I know Sherwood real well, there is about 3 or 4 dudes on there that will hold me accountable, and they're not even in the same damn country as me. Like if I don't post up a workout, they're like, where's your fucking score, dickhead? And at the time, I'm like, as I walk out to the barn and start warming up and get the workout done. But afterwards, guess what I am? Thanks, boys. Like that accountability is crucial. So how you figure that out in your crew is try to make that applicable for nutrition. That is important. Often missed, I find. The last 2 are fun though. Protect and serve your community. I think we're good here. I'm probably preaching to the converted here if I'm honest. But protecting and looking after your community probably just means staying the course with not giving them access to bullshit as well, you know? I get it. There's all the kind of the fizzy drink stuff and the what looks like chocolate bars but packaged as health thing, and they're a good revenue earner. But is it really in keeping with what we're trying to showcase to people? Those are just questions I'm posing. I ain't judging you, my friends. You're all business owners. You do what you need to do. But it's just questions that we need to do, right? Protect and serve means look after them, right? Like a mama bear if you want to, you know? You look after them and you run them down if the people get on your nerves. That's a very important piece of the puzzle in that they do regular community endeavors. I think the CrossFit community work best when they work for others. You ever done that? Work better when you're doing something for others. We had an initiative that was started during COVID in the UK, and it was called Part of the Solution. Now it was t-shirts, real simple. You could buy the t-shirt saying that, you know, CrossFit gyms are part of the solution, not part of the problem when it came to COVID. We were a bit mad about shit, but anyway, we could go down a rabbit hole there. My point being is, those t-shirts you could buy and give a percentage of that to any gym that you felt was struggling. So it could be your local gym, or it could go into a central pot, which then we could then decide if there was a gym struggling at the end of COVID, we could give them that money. So that blew up. We had tens of thousands of dollars put into that, pounds for us. We also then had companies like Gymshark. You aware of that, like the clothing company? They donated like £25,000 into that, just into the pot, just go ahead. And off the back of that, we managed to save 3 gyms from closing their doors after COVID because we could pay their rent for the next 6 months. And we wanted to go, all right, COVID, it's finished, we're gone, back to world. And they're like, no, we want to keep doing this. So now it's morphed into this whole situation where people keep doing it, buying t-shirts, adding to this pot, and now we keep buying defibrillators for gyms who don't have them because they're life-saving pieces of kit. So can you see how our community is some of the world's best in giving? So try and generate those things and get out there into the community, those that really need it, right? That makes sense? Those kind of things can be a self-perpetuating fund, if I'm honest. So who would love to do an outreach program for people that can't afford to do CrossFit? Yeah, it would be awesome, wouldn't it, right? So can we see how, but you've got to pay your coaches. But can you see how, like, if everybody feels that way and you generate those kind of initiatives, can you see how that would be a central pot that you could take the money from to pay your coach for an hour each week? Yeah. Work together, team. That's what I'm trying to say to you, right? We're better together. We've been a bit shit at it recently for the years, right? Who's going to, agree with me here that the affiliate world has underperformed? Not individually, but collectively. Yeah, me too. I've always felt that. But we can change that, right, with our actions on a daily basis. This is the core collective. Look how many affiliate owners and trainers you've got in here. Get together, talk through these ideas, make it happen. And guess what CrossFit will do? They'll support it. That's how it works, right? All the best ideas that have come from CrossFit haven't come from CrossFit. They come from the community. They were built from there. Build it first. Talk to Artur. Talk to your local affiliate owners and start doing great work together, right? Because that's how we do this even better. Cool? Yeah. All right. Next thing. Now we're talking about my world. Yeah, boy. Develop the coach. Try not to suck. That's pretty much it, right? They invest in developing the coaching and they push forwards. Now, I could keep sitting my level 1 and still get something from it, because listening to the basics over and over again is never a wrong thing. But can you see how I still want you to push forwards? There's such a gulf there to push for. The level 1 is the feeling. Right? Does anybody remember really any specific details of the lectures in their level 1? Maybe one or two. Maybe one or two if you were that way inclined. But I think you keenly remember the feeling because you try to pay that forwards all the time. That's what I would encourage you to do, right? It's the feeling. We're purposefully charged with getting people and turning them into the fully fledged CrossFit wanker, we call them. The CrossFit wanker is that person that won't shut up about CrossFit. You know those first 2 weeks where you're just grabbing people and talking? Have I told you about CrossFit? Have you heard the word of Craig Glassman? You know, like Jehovah's Witness. That's kind of the job. The level 2 though, who's been on their level 2? How was day 1? Was it one of these?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be like, hey, you remember how you're supposed to pay attention to detail? Yeah, maybe you should do that. That's what day 1's supposed to be, right? And then day 2, does anybody remember what day 2 was? That was like, all right, now we go to work. Now you're going to get the skills. Now you're going to get the processes. Now you've got some stuff to practice on. But there's still a danger there, isn't there? The level 2. Who recognizes this journey? Sunday night. So much info. Got a whole manual. And then you just do this. You leave it alone. And then you go to the gym on Monday and you do this, right? Right. Hit the ground running. You come out and you are firing, aren't you, like that? Your people are like, what the fuck did you do at the weekend? Anybody feel that as well? They're like, holy shit, like, did you go on a course or something? Like, what? Do a quick line before you go in the thing? What the hell? Like, this has gone crazy. You're up here. And like, ah. And then you're like, yeah, buddy, look at that. I crushed it. And then you sit down after it and you're like, oh, I'm fucked. And then if you were like me, you're coaching 3, maybe 4, maybe even 5 hours on that first day, right? What do you reckon happens by about the 5th hour to that kind of intensity of coaching? Yeah. How well do you sleep on that Monday night? Like the dead. You get up Tuesday and you feel a bit tired from all of the effort. And then what happens to the intensity of your coaching? Yeah, what is the inevitable path? Go back down to where you were before, right? Because it's too much. You're trying to change too much. So can you see how we should be taking the learnings of that level 2 and just trying to practice one thing for like the next couple of months? You know, like just get round everybody in the crew and give them good job on a specific thing. That's it. Don't even need to do much correcting unless it's crazy. That's it for like 6 months. You see how it's a drip feed of time. Then what should we be doing after that? The L3. Yeah, buddy! The 4-hour shit fest of an exam. Who loves exams? Good. Grateful no one put their hand up. I was close then, but that was a wasp, wasn't it? So it's okay. I'm good. Yeah, exams suck. I hated it. However, it's the only way we know at the moment currently of seeing if you can retain shit up here. So until somebody can develop the matrix thing where you just jam a spike into the back of someone's head to see if they can download shit, we're stuck with exams. So I challenge you to go do it. You understand those core concepts, not just from a theoretical point of view, but how would you practically apply it? So I want you to challenge that because less than 1% of the worldwide trainers hold the level 3. So if you have that, you should be fucking proud, and that should be everywhere. It's a tough test. However, doesn't mean shit, does it? Because it's just a piece of paper. And that's what I love about our level of credentials. I know I'm biased, I get it. But so many things are, I've sat the exam, you know everything. And do you? Never. Because it falls apart. I was in charge when I was a gym manager. I know, I used to manage people. Imagine that shit show, right? I used to be in charge of trainers who'd come out of university with like first degrees in strength and conditioning and all this kind of stuff. And they were nerds to the highest order. Absolute nerds. It was great. You could sit there and they could talk to you about details and blow your mind. But then when I said, cool, go teach that person who has no idea what any of the things that you're saying about how to execute a basic deadlift. And they'd go, they had nothing. Now that doesn't mean that it wasn't an easy judge. It was just, can you see how they've got a longer time to go to get the skill set of interpersonal relations and how to teach, see and correct. They've got the basics, that's great, but it took a longer journey. Ironically, the other way around was much easier. Isn't that crazy? I'd take my characters that had done nothing other than teach kids or teach people in other disciplines, and all I needed to do was give them books to read, and they had a much faster trajectory to getting to the end goal. But the goal is always improvement, isn't it? How do we do that? Well, if you're an affiliate owner, anytime you're not on the dance floor is a break. I feel you. The last thing you want to do is sit there and be like, I'm going to do some trainer development in the gym when it was my hour off. Anybody else feel me on that? Yeah, be honest, team. I'm with you. I've been doing this shit for a while too. It's like, I want to go home. I want to go and hang out. I want to like get out of the gym because I spend hours in here. I love it. Some of you in the crowd are like, no, I love the fucking gym. I'm like, give it time. Give it time. I love it too, but it has to be balanced, man. You know what I mean? So how do you do it? Well, the good thing is, if you understand how to help your trainers give feedback, more structured ways, then they can be doing that easily enough. And what do I mean by that? It doesn't need to be in-depth stuff, does it, to give feedback? Can you see how if you simply drew up a sheet, which you can download from the Professional Coach, by the way, that publication that comes out bi-monthly, and these are trainer sheets. On there, it's just simply got a long list of boxes where you can put people's names in the class in, and then it's got boxes like general interaction, specific interaction, and you tick it. You do not need to be a well-advanced coach to be able to hold somebody accountable to that, do you? You could give your trainers that ability. When you teach, when one teaches, two learn. The teacher learns too, don't they? So it's a fantastically open source way of being able to do it. Feedback needs to be given to our trainers always, but it can't be open-ended because it's never developmental. Has anybody like done that? It's like, hey, I'm going to give you feedback on the session. And then they give you this laundry list of stuff to get better at, which basically you interpret in your mind as your shit. And you're like, what do I do with all of this info? Yeah? Now, can you see how that's not developmental? That's just poking holes, and anybody can do that. Can you see how it needs to be given with targets or parameters, guardrails, if you will? It has to be, what are you working on in this next class? You tell me that, I'll then hold you accountable to that. That's kind of what we would call directive feedback. That's not opinion-based. That's just matter of fact. And that's developmental then, isn't it? This was my focus. This is how many times I did it or when I did it, and here are my options to get better at it. After that, depending on where you're at, then becomes the subjective piece, which is, in my opinion, I think this would make you better as well. Now, as with opinions, you can take it or leave it, agreed? But I think that's the good thing. That's how we work best on the seminar staff in particular as well. We have directive things that are non-negotiables. So non-negotiables are things like the content of the lectures, because that's important for your learning, and the time. And then we have other challenges which are much more subjective, like the message. Did you convey the message effectively? So can we see how those are the things that are going to be super crucial? So directive, you missed this point, you were 5 minutes over. Subjective, give more stories to embellish the point about how effective functional movements are, whatever. You see how that's how that can work. That's a far better structure for you to then start developing the feedback for your coaches rather than just, well, you missed Dave over here and he was on his toes, and I'm like, well, no shit, I was looking at Lisa. That's not helpful, make sense? So try and think about those ways of how you do it. If you need any help with that kind of structured feedback, CrossFit's already done shit tons of it and it's free. Dig into that, the Professional Coach. I'm lucky because I get bullied into reading it, because we do a study group every Wednesday. So I know there's a core group of like trainers who jump on there every Wednesday, and that means I have to have read the article, I have to have watched the video. Do you think I'm ever happy about getting up every Wednesday morning and having to do that shit? No. But what am I afterwards? Very grateful. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? That whole accountability piece. So if you want access to that, you'll have to listen to me and the other group of people, unfortunately. But hit me up after the fact and you can come and join our study group. It's free. Just people come and join us at midday every Wednesday. We've gone through all of the level 3 trainer manual. We've gone through all of the level 1 manual, the level 2 manual, the kids, the master's course. And now we're up to date on the Professional Coach as well. And they're all recorded and stored on YouTube too, so you can listen to them at your leisure. But they are a resource to help you, to educate you, and have the physical things as well. So, in summary.
Can you write down the link to?
The link is kind of a private Facebook group. I can't remember what it is, but hit me up.
Oh, so if you're in a Facebook group. Oh.
Yeah. But I'll write it up. You can hit me up and I'll figure out what the link is, but for sure. So, this is what's done well. So much like we talked about yesterday when we look at all of our balance and stuff, where do we suck the most? I'm going to challenge you to look at that and start asking your peer group across the rest of what this is, how would you do that? You don't have to come up with the ideas, but I'd argue that somebody in here has a great idea that you haven't thought of yet. So if it's going to be this, which I'd argue is probably a few of us, chat to the rest of your crew. How do they do it? What ideas do you have? develop it amongst themselves. Have a look at these things. Hold yourselves accountable. Start those conversations. We're stronger together, right? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.